Dear student, welcome you all in my class. Today I am going to discuss on the topic Herdmania. The common name of Herdmania is sea squirt. Herdmania belong to the phylum Chordata, subphylum Urochordata, class Acidaceae, order Acidiae simplicis. The SM Das was the first person who reported the Herdmania pallida. Herdmania distributed worldwide. In Indian Ocean, the three species are reported. One is Herdmania pallida and number two is Herdmania muritiana. The two species, they are shallow coastal water species. Number three is Herdmania ceylonica, is deep water species. Now about habitat. Herdmania is exclusively marine animal and solitary and sedentary. But with the help of mollusk or type of living gastropods which name is Turbinella. Turbinella, this mollusk carry the Herdmania or ascidian from place to place for provide better opportunity for food, oxygen and dispersal. In turn, Herdmania conceal and protect the mollusk from enemies. So, Herdmania shows the commensalism activity. Its adult is sessile and they remain attached to the substratum with the help of food. And it is a microphagous, means they feed on small microscopic animals. And they are also ciliary feeder. And one thing is, if we disturb or it's disturb the body, it suddenly contract and emit the content, inner content forcefully through the aperture. So it's called sea squirt. Now about morphology. The shape of Herdmania is sac-like or laterally compressed and oblong or rectangular in shape. It attached and slightly narrower than the fray end. On the fray end, the two projection, the branchial and the atrial siphon. The branchial siphon shows a branchial aperture or mouth, and atrial siphon, which is show the cloacal region or opening of the cloaca, and atrial siphon is longer comparison to the branchial siphon. The average size of the adult is approx 9.5 cm long, 7 cm broad and 4 cm thick. The older animals even attain a size approx 12 cm long, 8 cm broad, 4 cm thick. The test is thick, soft and leathery, and they cover around the body and have a bright red patches which is basically formed by the blood vessels in a test, have a terminal knob-like structure are present, due to which the red patches which are appear on the body on a test. uh, the test is uh, transparent in young stage, but in adult it become opaque. And this test is secreted by the epidermis of body wall, or you can say mantle, and it have several composition, means test have several composition like matrix, corpuscles, fibrils, blood vessels and spicules. Now about the body division. the whole body, which is divided into two parts. Number one is the body proper and number two is the foot. In a body proper, it is a broader and longer than the basal part. In a body part, in a fray end of the body, have a branchial aperture and atrial aperture. Branchial aperture is 1 centimeter long and it directed outward in direction, and it have a terminal opening is called branchial aperture or mouth, or you can say incurrent siphon. It is wider and it allow better influx of water which carrying food and oxygen and other things. And atrial aperture, it is also known as a cloacal siphon. It is approx 1.5 centimeter long and it directed upward direction, or its name you also call excurrent siphon. Now about foot, it is entirely made up of test or tunic and its color dirty due to the sand particle, shell pieces and other foreign body which are attached to it. The substratum is quite hard, so the foot act as a balancer and they keep the body erect in position. Now about orientation. Body of Herdmania has a definite and the branchial aperture which mark the anterior mark and the anterior end of the body, and the opposite end which of the branchial aperture which attached to the substratum is called the posterior. The side on which the atrial aperture is placed mark the dorsal end of the body. The side of opposite to that, it which partially attached to the substratum is ventral portion of the body or ventral side. Now the whole test which is form the external covering or protective jacket around the body, and test is also act as a accessory respiratory organ, or its origin is ectodermal. It is transparent in young stage. Test is transparent in young stage, but in adult it become opaque. The test is wear off continuously from outer and it replaced from inside by the epidermis of mental or body wall. The entire foot is made up of or composed of test, and test is composed of these 5 things. Number 1 is a clear gelatinous matrix, corpuscles, interlacing fibril, calcareous spicule and several branching vascular vessels. Now about matrix. Matrix actually a ground substances which is made up of polysaccharides, or it known as tunicin. It is similar to the plant cellulose. It is similar to the plant cellulose. And number 2 is the cells or corpuscles. They are mesodermal in origin, basically 6 to 7 in number. Large snowflake cells and some granular cells and uh, some rounded vacuolar cells, nerve cells, squamous epithelial cells. These approx 6 to 7 different types of cells are present there. And next is the interlacing fiber. It is actually a fine network which are present in the text. They are smooth muscles fiber, and they are resembles to the some nerve fibers. Uh, about spicules, they all are made up of calcium, and they are called calcareous spicule. Basically, the two type of spicule, one name is the microscleres and second name is the megascleres. Microscleres, they are very small, and megascleres, they are very large. They both are calcareous and have a definite shape. Microscleres are found only in a test, and each spicule, which is consist of a rounded knob-like head and an elongated tapering body. The head is generally smooth. Head is generally smooth, and body bears a large number of rings of spines which present around it. The size of spicule, which is varies between 50 to 80 micron. The megascleres, which are also two types. Number one is the spindle shape and next is the pipette shape. Here in this picture, this one is a spindle shape and this one is the pipette shape. Now about spindle shaped spicules. They are enclosed in a connective tissue sheet and they scattered throughout the body, and they are regularly arranged basically posterior part of the test. This one, this picture. They are very abundant in a mental, but they are not uniformly distributed. They are found basically in a bundle form, and they are usually dense in the region of stomach, gonads, and at the base of siphon. Uh, its size ranging from 1.5 millimeter, but some size may attain 2.5 millimeter. Now here about pipette shaped spicules. This one, they are pipette shaped spicules, and they are larger than spindle shape and have a approx 3.5 millimeter size. They are 3.5 millimeter in length. The spicules have a presence of large spherical swelling in between or in the middle, so it gives the shape of pipette. The spicules are not straight and have a two pointed limb. One is this and second is this. So they have the two pointed limb on either side of the swelling, and resulting have a different type of shape like U, like V. So they resemble the spindle shaped spicule, having a large number of ring of spines which are present around the body, and they are abundantly represent in the mental region, especially in the region of the gonads and lobe of the liver. Megascleres are present almost every organ of the body. Spicules form a skeleton tissue basically for the purpose have a supporting for various organ of the body. Now about the function of spicules. Spicules provide internal rigidity supporting framework endoskeleton like endoskeleton and keep the mental fixed with the test and mental firmly fix the test and stiffen the wall of blood vessels to avoid from the collapsing. So spicules form a sheet around the blood vessels. Its function, what function? It function to be stiffen the wall of the vessels and it uh, prevent from their collapsing. Now body wall. The body wall of Herdmania is called mental. It secretes test and are present beneath the test. It attached only at the branchial and atrial siphon and it form corresponding branchial and atrial siphon. The mental enclosed a large uh, water-filled cavity or atrial cavity is known as a atrium. On a histological point of view, mental has a three layer. One is outer layer is called outer epidermis, middle layer is mesenchyme and inner layer epidermis form the outer lining of atrial cavity. Now about outer epidermis. It is formed of a single layer of flat hexagonal cell and it covers the branchial and atrial aperture and its siphon. The branchial and atrial aperture which extend up to the base of the siphon and it forms stomodium and proctodium respectively. Now about mesenchyme, it is developed from the mesoderm and has a connective tissue containing blood sinuses, muscles fiber, nerve fiber and cells. The muscles fibers are long and flat. Around the branchial and atrial siphon, the mental has a annular muscles. The around the branchial and atrial siphon have a annular muscles and below the annular muscles are longitudinal muscles which are starting from the branchial and atrial aperture and run up to the middle of the body on each side next is the inner epidermis. It is a single layer of flat polygonal cell and it forms the lining of atrium. And what is the function of mental? Number one is the body wall protect visceral organ and the outer epidermis of mental secrete the test and musculature or muscle cells like longitudinal muscles and next is the annular muscles which contract the body and the corresponding siphon. Now about anatomy of Herdmania. The whole body of Herdmania can be divided into two parts. One is body proper and second is the foot. Body proper which is project into the sea water and foot which is embedded in the sea bottom. The all soft part of the body lie in the body proper. If we remove the test of the body proper, many of the internal organ of an animal we can see. So, uh, the foot which is entirely composed of test and foot has no any soft part of the body. The foot has no any soft part of the body inside. So, we can examine this internal organ by the true way. One is when we examine body from the left side. The following structures are visible. Firstly, the two siphon which is projecting upward. Number one is the branchial aperture, number two is the atrial aperture, and they have a corresponding muscles like annular muscles. These they are annular muscle and longitudinal muscles which are run up to in the middle of the body, and uh, the respective lips of the aperture which are also seen here, and the stomach and intestine and rectum, basically the intestine which forming the wide loop, the part of left lobe of the liver which are present in front of the stomach, the left gonad which form a mass which are lying in the loop of intestine, this one. In the next, in this picture, in this slide, we have examined the Herdmanial body on a from a right side. So here several structures are visible, like in a left view. Here is also seen the two siphon. One is the atrial aperture, and second is the branchial aperture, and two siphon along with their musculature like annular muscles and longitudinal muscles which are present in the up to the middle of the body. Next is the pericardium. This one is the pericardium which are appear as a long transparent tube, have a uniform thickness, and within which the heart is lying. Heart is present inside the pericardium. The right lobe of liver which form a less or oval mass near the anterior end of the pericardium, this one. The right gonad which form a lobulated mass and close to the line of the insertion of the longitudinal siphon muscles. The endostyle as a opaque rod which running along the ventral margin, this here margin, along the ventral margin of the branchial sac. Now about coelom. Due to the overdevelopment of atrium, or you can say peribranchial cavity, the true coelom in Herdmania which is absent. Atrium. Atrium is the cavity or space which is lying between the mental and pharynx, and it is the ectodermal line cavity, and it enclosed by the mental. Atrium has a two part. One part surrounded the pharynx, and other part of the atrium which is the part which is dorsal to the pharynx, it is white and we call it cloaca. So in the cloaca the rectum and gonoduct open into it. The cloaca open to exterior through the atrial siphon and or atrial aperture. Look here. The atrial siphon which shows a ring of processes called atrial tentacles. The atrial cavity is continuous throughout the body, and it is narrow on the two lateral side of the pharynx which is called peribranchial cavity. The peribranchial cavity communicate with the cavity of pharynx through stigmata in the wall of the pharynx. Thank you all.